Ian here again with another recording for Zcon sessions. I am joined by Alex Bornstein, the Chief Operating Officer of the Zcash Foundation. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think there's a couple of things I want to chat on, but I think a good way to always start these conversations is just provide a brief introduction, what you've been working on at the foundation, and then we can kind of get into the topics that, we want to cover. So, what's your background, where you're coming from, and what are you working on in Zcash?
Sure, yeah. So, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Zcash Foundation, which basically means I'm in charge of everything except for our engineering efforts.
Okay.
But I get to interact with our engineers and that amazing team all the time. So I kind of have the best of both worlds while not having responsibility for both worlds.
That does sound like a pretty sweet gig.
It is. I get to work with brilliant people and learn from them, and also my work supports their work and gives them the ability to focus on the incredibly complex challenges of working in the space that we work in.
Yeah.
I've been with the ZF for 2 years, but I've been in the nonprofit space for almost 30. So my background is in almost entirely nonprofit management and administration. So my primary job at ZF is to ensure that we're compliant with all laws, compliant with all the regulations that regulate nonprofits. And one thing that's really cool about the way ZF is set up and Zcash in general is that, there's a lot that regulates the work that we do at ZF. And it's very focused on making sure accounting is right and all these back office stuff that's not sexy to most 99.9% of the people.
Yeah.
But it ensures that we're acting with integrity and that we're acting with honesty and our work is fully transparent. You can find out anything you want about the work we do and our financials and budget and all those things. It's all publicly available.
Yep.
Which I'm really proud of. I think that's really neat, and it's really fairly rare in the crypto space in general.
Yeah, and I think that level of transparency is super important because obviously we're working within an ecosystem and we're working within a community, and we're here to support them as well. And having that type of accountability, transparency, and accountability is super important.
Well, and obviously we believe in privacy. Obviously. But I think the organizations that support the ecosystem need to be transparent. They need to show users and show the community that we're working on their behalf to make things, to always be iterating and making things better and better.
100%. Totally agree with that. So I want to ask first, Zcon 4, putting on the event and a lot of the effort that went into that. Can you tell me more about that? And then what are your thoughts? Like, is it met expectations, exceeded expectations?
Yeah. So we started work on this about a year ahead of time. And directly after we got back from Vegas, we, kind of downloaded, learned what we could learn from that event. And then we really get started right away on identifying venues, trying to figure out what the theme's going to be, all those things. And it's a tiny team. It's really 4 or 5 of us that do all of this work.
Yeah.
And so it makes a very tight-knit, solid team for sure.
Probably a lot of fun to work in.
A huge amount of fun. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, to use a well-worn cliche.
Yep.
True. A lot of tears. It can get very frustrating. However, we very quickly honed in on Barcelona. We heard from people. So many people have this is a bucket list place for people to go.
Yeah, for me as well.
And so many people had not been here. So really cool to be able to bring that to people and give them the opportunity to come. But as far as, our happiness with this event, I think the coolest thing is we're sold out. Like, this is capacity, which is fantastic. I think it's probably the most people we've ever had at a Zcon, over the years. I think it is the most people we've ever had at a Zcon.
Okay.
And the quality and interest level and passion of the people that are here is amazing. And this is far and away the most diverse Zcon we've ever had. So we have people that you've spoken to so many people I know, the Brazilian contingent, all the different groups that are represented here are extraordinary, not just represented as participants, but we made a conscious effort to ensure that grantees, community members, community groups were reflected in the panels themselves. So, hopefully people are watching they'll watch the live stream or we'll be watching the recorded events. And I hope that, wherever you are in the world, you're going to see some reflection of your geographic location.
I think that's been super cool because, like, obviously I went to the last Zcon, which was equally as amazing.
Thanks.
But I think that this event in particular is really cool for me as someone who doesn't particularly always like work on the technical side and engage with those communities. I have before and worked on Arbors calls, things of that nature, but it's not necessarily my lane. So to see like the community and those projects and those groups be really represented at this Zcon, for me, has been a highlight. I've been super excited. I've done a few of the interrupting while they're speaking claps to like give them a little bit of love while they're on stage. So I'm really enjoying that. There was a big announcement. I think it was 2 days ago on the first day. My days are getting mixed up.
It's been a long week. Yeah.
That the Zcash Foundation is creating or incubating a new nonprofit based in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah. Given everything that's happening in the United States, Zcash itself is the institutions that are a part of Zcash are very U.S. focused and U.S. based. And that there are risks associated with that. We all are committed to decentralization, which also means geographic and jurisdictional decentralization. So quite some time ago, we began looking at a variety of jurisdictions. I think we looked at a total of 14 international jurisdictions to see where would best fit where Zcash is today and where we want to go for tomorrow. As you can imagine, there's a huge amount of legal, financial, risk, all sorts of different assessments that,
Sure.
If you could see my spreadsheet, it's
quite intense.
It's quite intense. It overwhelms even me, and I'm the one that put it together. And so the point is that Cayman Islands for us was the right choice. It is a standalone organization. It is not an extension of the Zcash Foundation. But what it does do is give us flexibility. It allows us to eventually what it will be is a donor grantee relationship. And so what we hope to use this entity for is further expanding the work of Zcon Voices, which we did this year, first off in Brazil, and we hope to do hopefully next in Africa very shortly.
Okay.
And Zcons that are outside of the United States help fund those efforts as well. And then we'll see what else. And if there becomes a terminal threat to Zcash in the United States, it gives us an option to move operations to this other entity. So it's still flexible. We still haven't fully decided how it's going to work and what it's going to be used for. And ultimately, it will be up to the board of directors of that entity to make that decision. But incubating is kind of one way to put it.
Okay.
That we're creating this infrastructure. We've taken on the burden of figuring out the where and the how, and then making it happen. But eventually, it will turn into something bigger than even I could explain to you today. Like the goal is for it at some point to take on a life of its own.
Okay.
Because that's going to help the ecosystem. And there's a lot of challenges to still overcome. There's a lot of again, the unsexy back office work. That's where we are. But it needs to be set up with every T crossed and I dotted. So we're ready. So it's ready to go, and it's fit for purpose for a variety of possibilities, possible outcomes.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think there was an interesting point there because, when the announcement's made, you have people all across the conference talking about it and trying to kind of, I guess, piece the puzzle together and figure out what is this organization? How is it linked to ZF? What's the affiliation? You mentioned just now that it is a standalone organization. I don't know if there's any more context that you wanted to add to that and just kind of letting the community know that how these organizations are separate and why they're not directly affiliated with each other. If that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, no. A direct affiliation, like a subsidiary type relationship, wouldn't really solve some of the jurisdictional issues that could possibly arise. So that having that separation is just creates that much more. It makes it that much more useful in the future. So not to say that ZF is going to be 100% involved for the beginning portion of this, and I can make no promises for where this is going to go. But the coolest part of it is we're creating something that can go in all these different directions. It's not set to one idea, one vision. We're really kind of seeing where it goes.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm really excited about that. This, to a large extent, is my baby, and it's something I have a lot of experience setting up and working with. And to be able to sit down and say, here's Zcash, here's ZF, this is where we might want to be in the future. These are the things that could happen to us that might stop us from getting there, or that might somehow hinder us. What actions can we take today without knowing what the future is going to look like,
100%.
and make it as flexible as possible? And I think that's the thing. There are so many, we could name a bunch of jurisdictions right this second.
Yeah.
The coolest part about the way we're setting this up in Cayman is it is flexible, and it does give us options for really kind of, morphing this into something else if a need arises. It's also possible we just kind of set this up and we put a bunch of effort into it, and it just kind of sits quietly for some time, and then all of a sudden it's needed and it's ready, because this is not an overnight process, as you could well imagine.
Yeah, I definitely imagine.
Yeah, it is a long, arduous process, even in a jurisdiction like Cayman that isn't known for that type of lift, that type of heavy lift.
Yeah, no, 100%. What's the best way for community members to potentially follow along with this development, and what are the best resources they could go to? Maybe social media or newsletters, etc. Where's the best kind of medium for them to engage with them?
We'll be sharing information through all the normal, ways we share information, through Twitter and newsletter and those things. What I would ask is that everybody be patient, not jump to conclusions or or come up with various theories. I can tell you right now that it is a very open future, and I can't say it enough. The goal is to create something that is ready. It's like it's a way to be flexible in the face of uncertainty. That's the way to say it. It's trying to be flexible in the face of uncertainty and not knowing what future threats could look like either. And of course, this will not address every eventuality, but it's going to address quite a few of them.
Yeah,
and that's what we're shooting for.
100%. Because of the importance of this topic, this is a question I usually ask in more longer form interviews, but I want to ask before we maybe have some parting thoughts. Was there anything that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
No. I mean, I'm just so stoked to be here, and I get such huge inspiration from being around you and everybody that's here, in so many different ways. You got the work you're doing, the work ZFAB Club's doing, the work Zcash Brazil's doing. I could go on and on. It just makes the long hours, it makes this arduous travel, it makes being away from family, it makes all those things worth it.
Yeah.
And it makes me kind of wake up every morning and say, what can I do to improve the Zcash ecosystem today? And I know I'm not alone in that. All of us could spend 24/7 talking about these things, but also taking action.
Yeah.
You talk all day long, this is your thing, you're fantastic at it, but you're not just talking, you're taking action. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to see more of that across the ecosystem, and I apply that to ZF and ECC as well.
Yeah.
And I think we're all trying to row in the same direction, even if at times it might not come across that way.
I would totally agree with that. And I think that's the biggest thing. For me this weekend, it's all been about what are the next steps? What can we do? And I feel like a lot of the panels and discussions I've listened to, it's let's get into the forums, let's get into the various communication channels that we have, and let's create proposals, and let's start discussions, and let's have, let's potentially have debates and some potential well-intentioned conflict as well, because this is a crucial point of the time in the ecosystem, and we need to be collaborative and work through all these different design choices. So yeah.
And to make Zcon worth it, there has to be action that comes out of it. And I think we're already seeing action. I've seen, discussions on Sunday have turned into action today. Which is
pockets. You see people teaming up little conversations. You're like, okay.
I love seeing people huddled down on their laptops, and I, see people. There was actually two people I saw earlier today who I know made a connection on Sunday, because I saw the connection be made, and they're huddled down in the foyer right now, clicking away, talking to each other.
That's awesome.
Clearly working on something.
That's very
that's fantastic.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your work.
Yeah, thank you
for the Zcash ecosystem, putting on this event, and obviously the new work with this new foundation based in Cayman Islands. Thank you so much for the time today.
Anytime. Yeah, thanks for everything you do.
Cool.